The Cuyahoga County Council Operations and Intergovernmental Relations Committee meeting is now called to order. Chrissy, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Simon.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Ms. Baker. Ms. Baker is absent. Mr. Miller.
Here.
We have a quorum.
That is a mouthful. Council Operations and Intergovernmental Relations. I've heard the term choir used before. So I
just call it the Rules Committee.
Rules Committee. Okay, choir, Rules Committee. If we use those, then you will know what we're referring to. So, Chrissy, has anyone signed in for public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
All right. Can we have approval for the minutes from our March 21st meeting?
I so move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Miller and seconded by Council President Brady. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And one extension. Our minutes are approved. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, first I want to thank everyone for being here today and your willingness to serve on the Charter Review Commission. Instead of repeating the term Charter Review Commission, I want to let the audience know that the committee may be using the acronym CRC or referencing it as the Commission through this meeting. Your role on the Commission is vital, as the voters in 2009 overwhelmingly approved a charter form of government for Cuyahoga County. We believe this new government has been working very well, but we always know there's room for improvement, which you all, if confirmed, will be tasked with. For some brief background, this is the second Charter Review Commission in the history of Cuyahoga County. The first CRC was appointed in the summer of 2012 and met throughout 2012 and the first half of 2013. However, prior to the first CRC, Council put two charter amendments on the ballot in 2012, which both were successfully approved by the voters. Out of that first CRC, Council ultimately approved 4 charter amendments to go on the ballot, which all 4 were approved by the voters. In 2014, Council put an additional 4 charter amendments on the ballot, which the voters approved 3 of those 4 amendments. Finally, in 2015, Council put 1 additional charter amendment on the ballot, tweaking the previous charter amendment that failed in 2014, which resulted in the voters approving the tweaked version in 2015. So, since the charter form of government took place in 2011, there has successfully been 10 charter amendments to the original charter approved by the voters. After this Charter Review Commission completes its work, the next CRC will not be until 2027, which is 10 years away. So the work all of you will be undertaking over the next year will be very important, and I look forward to working with each of you. The format of today's committee meeting will be that I will ask a set of prepared questions to each appointee to the CRC. Since we received background documents on each of your experiences, you will not be required to provide an opening statement, but will only need to respond to the set of questions. After each applicant responds to each question, the rest of the committee may have additional follow-up questions. We will be hearing from 7 of the 9 CRC applicants today, and the remaining 2 will be heard in committee on July 18th. Council must approve the CRC appointments no later than August 31st. Before we begin our questions for the CRC appointment, I will have a couple of questions for the administration that I would like to have a written response by the July 18th committee meeting. So at this time, Chrissy, if you would read our resolution into the record.
Resolution 2017-0102, confirming the county executive's appointment of various individuals to serve on the Cuyahoga County Charter Review Commission for the term 9/1/2017 through 8/31/2018, as printed on the agenda.
All right. So Ed, we will start with a few of these questions for the administration. And first, who from the administration will be the clerk of the Charter Review Commission meetings?
So if, I spoke to Bob Triazzi just a few minutes ago, and we'll make sure, we both just got these, today, so we'll make sure we have all the answers to you in a timely manner, hopefully within a week, to make sure all of these answers are covered.
Okay. And Ed, I'm going to take a moment and just read each one
Sure,
into the
sure,
record.
absolutely.
And we certainly have till July 18th. Where will the Charter Review Commission meeting take place? Third, has the administration set the first meeting of the commission? If so, when is it? And FYI, the clerk of the CRC must call an organizational meeting by October 15th. The fourth question will be, what will be the recording method for the CRC? Also, will the CRC meeting be live streamed? Rules passed by council states all CRC meetings must be audio or videotaped. And the fifth and final question, how many other individuals in addition to these 9 applied for the CRC? Please provide a list of names of all of the other applications. Okay. All right. We will now begin the confirmation process for the CRC appointments. We will go in order of the names presented on the agenda, except for Mark Burns and Davita Russell, as they will be here on our July 18th meeting. At this time, would Judge Adrian now come to the podium?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Again, welcome, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to this part, and congratulations for coming to this part of the process. And we have several questions here, and we'll start. As you know, the charter says no more than 5 of the members of the CRC can be of the same political party. Although this information was included in the backup material, I would like to have this included in the official record. So please state your name, political party, and city of residence.
My full name is Ronald Bruce Adrian. I am a Democrat, and I live in the city of Cleveland.
Excellent. How did you learn about the position on the CRC?
I was approached by the county executive, who indicated that there would be a vacancy and asked me whether or not I'd be willing to serve.
Excellent. Have you gotten a chance to review the rules of the CRC that council passed?
I have briefly taken a look at them. I haven't really thoroughly scrutinized them yet.
I understand. Those rules require that the CRC is required to at least meet monthly. Does your schedule allow for such a time commitment?
Given the gravity of what this responsibility is, I'll make the time.
Excellent. Are you currently serving on any other government, private, or nonprofit boards or commissions?
I am. I sit on the board of Partnership for a Safer Cleveland here in Cleveland. I sit on the board of the National Center for State Courts, which is located in Alexandria, Virginia. And I sit on the board of the Futures Without Violence, which is a nonprofit located in San Francisco, California.
Next. The rules of the CRC require all meetings of the CRC be open to the public. Do you have any issues or concerns over that?
None whatsoever.
Also, council would like all the CRC meetings to be live streamed. Are you also okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
That's one. Okay. Next, the CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input from county officials, including council and the administration, will be critical to your work on the CRC. How will you balance being independent while at the same time receiving valuable input from county officials?
I believe that in order for us to be informed, that it's necessary for us to take input from whatever source. I expect that the public officials that come before the commission would respect the fact that we are to be independent and would not try to influence us in any other way.
How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations and discussions?
I would hope that we would have public meetings. I would hope that individuals who had an interest in any aspect of the work would submit to us either in writing or otherwise, the nature of their concerns and their desires, and that we would then be able to consider that in our deliberations.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
I think I bring to this effort 36 years on the bench, which gives me some insight as to how to cut to the chase, as it were. And also I had the responsibility and the obligation to serve on Charter Review Commission for the City of Cleveland under Michael White.
What do you see as the biggest issue currently facing Cuyahoga County government?
I think that the biggest issue certainly facing the county at this point has to do with managing the limited resources that are available to the county, and to make sure that those resources are distributed in a way that benefits all of the residents of the county and those who come to visit us.
If you're familiar with the previous Charter Review Commission from 2012 and 2013, what would be the one thing you would change from the way that commission operated versus how you would want this Charter Review Commission to operate?
To be frank with you, although I followed that commission, I didn't follow it that closely. I thought that it operated the way that it was designed to operate, and that it put forth recommendations that were worthy of consideration by the council. I would hope that we would be able to do the same.
Knowing what you know about how the current county government functions and the county charter, what do you believe is the #1 area or concern that needs to be addressed by this Charter Review Commission?
Frankly, Councilman, I'm not really sure that I'm in a position to pass on that at present. I would hope that I would be informed by the information that's presented to us by the various and sundry people who come before us.
Do you believe there are any current positions within county government that should go from an elected office to an appointed office, or vice versa?
I think that I'm on record as indicating that I believe that it would be appropriate to have the clerk of court's office be an appointed office under the Common Pleas Court. Other than that, I think that the way that things have been structured has worked to the benefit of the residents of this county.
In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from another government entity that you would like to see implemented at Cuyahoga County?
I do not.
Is there anything else you would like this committee to know about your appointment to the CRC?
I would like to tell you that I'm more than honored and quite humbled to be selected to serve. I look forward to the prospect of trying to make a good thing better.
Excellent. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Councilwoman?
Thank you. Thank you, Judge, for your willingness to serve on this Charter Review Committee. Are you familiar with the MOU between the county administration and the prosecutor's office, which delineates what type of cases would be handled internally with the administration versus what the prosecutor's office is handling with, and they're all civil cases. Do you recall that MOU?
I recall that there was some discussion about that the last time around, but I'm not really familiar with the intricacies of it.
Okay. So you're familiar, we did look at that last time.
Right.
Okay.
So I have an open mind about that. You know, I know that there was some discussion as to what would be appropriate and what was not appropriate.
Okay.
And so if that's one of the things that's on the table, I certainly would be willing to
Yeah.
look at it.
And just so you know, since that time, there's been an MOU entered into with the past prosecutor that's been implemented and has been going fairly well, actually really well. And
Okay.
so perhaps that might come before you to put into the charter.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? Councilman Miller?
Mr. President, Judge, first I'd like to thank you for stepping up and being willing to serve in this way that can have long and far-reaching implications for county government. And also to say that to anyone who may be listening on the live stream, that we strongly encourage the public to get involved in this process and to attend committee meetings or send suggestions for possible areas to look into or comment on proposals that are being considered, and we definitely encourage people to do that. I would also like to put out a suggestion and just get your comment on it. In the last review commission, they did all the work in the committee of the whole, and this had the advantage of everybody being able to hear everything that was discussed. But it also had the disadvantage that as they got close to the end of their time, they had some proposal areas that they wanted to work on, and they were large and complex, and they didn't perhaps have as much opportunity as they could have to really get into the weeds and flesh out the best drafting language for those amendments, and for that reason, I think that you might consider the possibility that once you identify some areas that you want to work on and have a general concept for a possible amendment, that you might identify a drafting subcommittee of 3 or 4 members of the committee to work on that particular amendment and to delve into it in great detail. And if you have 3 or 4 of these different drafting committees working on some of the key issues, it might better enable you to really sink your teeth into some of the complicated issues that you're going to have to deal with, and come up with some really well thought out language. And just wanted to get your thoughts on that as a possible way of operating.
I would hope that the commission would have the flexibility to be able to move in whatever way would be the most expeditious to accomplish the job that's been tasked to us. And if that includes breaking down into smaller committees that would take a more in-depth look at a particular issue, then I would hope that we would not be so hidebound as to require that everything be done in the committee of the whole, because sometimes, as you point out, that's not the most effective way to really deal with the myriad of different aspects of any given problem. So I'm hopeful that we be able to rise to the occasion when the occasion calls for a different format or structure.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions from the committee? Now, again, thank you, Judge.
And once again, thank you very much for allowing me to serve. Thank you.
At this time, would the Honorable Susan A. Drucker come forward?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And again, congratulations for coming this far in this process, and thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
All right. And our questions again will be similar. Please state your name, political party, and the city of residence.
I'm Susan A. Drucker. I am a Democrat, and I live in the city of Solon.
How did you learn of this position?
I received a call from Executive Budish, and he asked if I'd be interested as the Charter Review Commission would be convening, and I indicated that I would be interested in this position.
Excellent. Have you gotten a chance to review the rules of the CRC that council passed?
I did.
Excellent. Those rules require that the CRC is required to at least meet monthly. Does your schedule allow for you for such a time commitment?
I am able to devote the time necessary to this commitment.
Are you currently serving on any other government, private, or nonprofit boards or commissions?
I am. I am currently serving on the Cuyahoga County Economic Development Commission. I serve on the advisory board of the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. I serve on the Regional Advisory Board for the Auditor of State. I serve on the Executive Committee for the Cuyahoga County Mayors and Managers Association. I'm a mentor for the College Now program. I serve on the Scholarship Committee for the Solon Chamber of Commerce. I serve on the Chagrin Southeast Council of Governments, and I serve on the Chagrin Inter-Valley Council.
The rules of the CRC require all meetings of the CRC be open to the public. Do you have any issues or concerns over that?
No issues or concerns.
Also, council would like the CRC meetings to be live streamed. Would you be okay with that as well?
I am okay with that.
Excellent. The CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input from county officials includes council and the administration will be critical to your work on the CRC. How will you balance being independent while at the same time receiving valuable input from county officials?
I look at this position as the way I conduct myself as mayor, regardless of somebody's political party. If you're a friend, a contributor, I represent everybody equally and neutrally. And I would serve in that same capacity on the commission to be open and independent for the benefit of the county.
How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations and discussions?
Per the order of business and the rules and procedures, and in the open meetings procedure, I would support having the public comment section at every meeting, including any written or telephone calls that have come in, or written communication, be it a letter or email.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
I'm an accomplished executive with over 20 years of experience in public administration and management responsibilities in local and county government. The one asset I possess is my demonstrated proficiency in driving changes and business transformations in centralized and decentralized environments.
What do you see as the biggest issue currently facing county government?
I think the biggest issue facing county government as well as local governments is the declining financial resources from local revenue, including sales tax and property tax. This is a result of both changes in the state budget as well as the local economy. There's an issue of balancing the need to complete the county's core mission of delivering health and human services and administration of justice with investment in economic development and other non-discretionary programs. The county is an extension of state government, and so I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges.
If you're familiar with the previous Charter Review Commission from 2012 and 2013, what would be the one thing you would change from the way that the commission operated versus how you would want this Charter Review Commission to operate?
I would say I'm only vaguely familiar with that previous commission. However, I would recommend possibly for venues different venues for public input and review of recommendations from the commission. In addition to my experience in having charter review commissions in the city of Solon, I always made sure the departments, the directors of the city departments were made available to the commission if requested, and I would support this for the county as well. I believe it's beneficial for the county departments and agencies to have the opportunity to give feedback on draft proposals prior to releasing the recommended charter revisions. And by this, I mean the people who run these departments on a daily basis. And of course, in addition to the executive, his administration, and of course, council input.
Knowing what you know about how the current government functions and the county charter, what do you believe is the #1 area or concern that needs to be addressed by this commission?
I think while reviewing the charter, there were 2 areas that kind of raised some questions when I just reviewed it recently in the past week. And the one area that I would say is I'd like to review further in detail is Section 9, which is the Personnel Review Commission and the Department of Human Resources. There appears to be some duplication of services, and I have some questions as to why some of the responsibilities fall under the Personnel Review Commission rather than the Human Resources Department. Some examples of this would be the training of management for personnel practices, training of employee and job functions, a performance management system, and coordination of recruitment. And just as I said, as I was reviewing the charter, I just questioned, why are these falling? I understand human resources is under the Personnel Review Commission, but why don't these responsibilities fall directly under human resources? So that's one thing I'd like to address.
Do you believe there are any current positions within county government that should go from an elected office to an appointed office, or vice versa?
I do not have an opinion as of today whether a position should be elected or appointed. Anyone in particular, I mean.
Okay. In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from another government entity that you would like to see implemented at Cuyahoga County?
I do not have a best practice example, but I believe you can learn something from any other government entity who has had a charter review commission.
Is there anything else you would like this committee to know about your appointment to the CRC?
I believe it's important that official documents or charters, for example, of any government entity, are kept up to date to assist not only the administration, but the general public as to the rules and regulations of that particular government entity. I would take this responsibility seriously, and I would be honored to serve on a commission whose responsibility it is to help facilitate a more effective and efficient government.
Excellent. Do my committee members have any additional comments, questions? Councilman Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Mayor, thank you very much for being willing to serve. And you said that there were two items in reviewing the charter that came to your attention, and you mentioned the Personnel Review Commission as one. What was the other one?
The second one was, I thought, consider reviewing, and this comes from the serving on the Economic Development Commission, reviewing Article 7 to determine if more specific requirements about the resources and financial capacity available to the county in any given biennium need to be identified prior to adopting an economic development plan. Right now in the charter, we have an economic development section, but we don't have any parameters. I'm not saying to put a specific amount in a charter, but maybe there's always going to be some practical limits of what you can spend and what you can accomplish every year. And I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial to, the resources for economic development are guided by the budget, and maybe to have some parameters of some sort in the charter that don't tie your hands, but do put practical limits on what can be achieved each year.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Mayor, there was one aspect of your experience that I was really impressed with and want to ask about, which is being a College Now mentor.
Yes.
What's that been like, and what have you learned from that?
I'll be entering my second year. This is an incredible program, and I promote it. And so what you do is it's the College Now program takes freshmen entering college who may be the first members of their family entering college, and you serve as a mentor or a peer to help them through the college experience. And it's interesting because you're giving guidance. You're not parenting, so there's a fine line, but you're helping this student when they have issues, maybe financial aid issues. You're helping guide them through the process of how to rectify some of their issues or problems, because maybe their parents aren't able to help them because they're not familiar with the college process. But it's been fulfilling, and I'm looking forward to the second year coming on.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Mayor, the county considers the relationship with the municipalities to be an extremely important part of what we do, and for that reason, I'm happy that we have not just one but two mayors being proposed for this commission. And my question is there anything in the relationship between county government and municipal government that you feel needs attention and could be addressed through the charter?
Well, that's I can't think of anything offhand on the spot that would be to put in a charter. But I guess I'd have to give something like that more thought.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, final question. In the last Charter Review Commission, once they drafted proposals, they had some public hearings out in various locations around the county to get public input, and they for one of these meetings they used an informal World Cafe format rather than a simply having people stand in front of a large group, and we got some very good input from that. It sounded like from your initial comments that you would be interested in doing something like that to get public input. Is that the case?
I just think I would encourage public input. I think because the more public input you get in a process like this, people embrace it more rather than just having 9 people sit in a room, nobody sees you, or we're difficult to reach, and we're just telling them, and go vote on these recommendations, trust us. So I think to encourage as much public input, and I think you have to make it, even with technology today, you still have to make it easy for the residents so that they do participate.
Any further questions from the committee? Mayor, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you. I'd appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
At this time, if Dennis Kennedy would come forward. Again, congratulations.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Congratulations, and thank you for being willing to serve. And your questions are the same as well. Please state your name, political party, and city of residence.
My name is Dennis G. Kennedy. I'm a resident of South Euclid, and I am a registered Republican.
How did you learn about the position up on the CRC?
I was approached by the county executive who asked me if I would have the interest and the time to be available, and after I thought about it, I thought it'd be a good opportunity and good learning experience, so I said yes to his offer and am appreciative of the opportunity to serve.
Have you had an opportunity to review the CRC rules that council passed?
Yes.
Okay. Again, as you're aware, those rules require CRC to meet at least monthly. Does your schedule allow for this time commitment?
Yes, I don't believe that'll be a problem.
Are you currently serving on any other government, private, or nonprofit boards or commissions?
As the mayor stated, I am also a member of the Regional Advisory Board of the State Auditor's Office, but other than that, all of my responsibilities fall within service on Cuyahoga County boards and functions.
The rules of the CRC require all meetings be open to the public. Do you have any issues or concerns over that?
No, sir.
Would live streaming be an issue that you would be okay with?
Yes.
Thanks. The CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input from our county council, including council and administration, will be critical to your work on the CRC. How will you balance being independent while at the same time receiving valuable input from county officials?
Well, I think much as my day-to-day responsibilities here require, there's a certain air of independence and objectivity and professionalism that I think I would extend to the service on this particular commission. I don't foresee any kind of problem with that.
How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations and discussions?
In addition to the previous references to open meetings and live stream, I agree with Mayor Drucker's recommendation that we probably have some kind of on-the-road type meetings, town hall meetings or whatever, to gather some additional input from the public. I think those are important but need to be advertised correctly, because otherwise you're only going to get a handful of people to show up. And I think how we get that word out to everyone would be imperative. I also would recommend, and this falls more in line with the best practice question, but in looking at what some other jurisdictions did, we should probably set up a separate website or email address and maybe a Facebook page to encourage constant contact, trading information as to what the commission is talking about, what section we're looking at, to make that relevant to the public and encourage participation from the public.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
Well, I'm old, so I've had a lot of experience. I've been involved in a couple of roles to the Charter Review Commission in other municipalities, and the important thing is, which I think I can bring, is you have to put into context what you want to have happen versus how you're going to administer that. In a lot of cases, a lot of folks have great ideas and think they're easy fixes, but you have to be able to administer those ideas and implement them. I think that I have the background to be able to at least give the members of the commission and maybe folks from the general public some context on how we get that accomplished.
What would you see as the biggest issue currently facing county government?
Well, for the government standpoint, as the previous two candidates referenced, I think it's the financial wherewithal of the county, and more particularly the region, in terms of lost revenue that has been occurring on a pretty steady drip by drip basis. Some of it prompted by cuts in the state. I think the county needs to work together with all the municipalities and political subdivisions. I mean, we have pretty close contact with them in the fiscal office through the budget commission. We see all their budgets, not only from the cities, but the school districts. And I think we need to start looking at things on a more global aspect as opposed to individual. But I'm sure the revenue, how we provide service, and the increasing demands of that, the opioid crisis is an example of that. How do we continue to do that when revenues decline? But we need to get total involvement with all the municipalities and school districts to see how we can do a better job. But finances are obviously key to our success and the ability to continue our programs or even expand those.
If you're familiar with the previous Charter Review Commission from 2012 and 13, what would be the one thing that you would change from the way that commission operated versus how you would want this Charter Commission to operate?
I did read the report of the Charter Review Commission. I'm not familiar with their day-to-day operations. Again, I like the idea of maybe focusing some subcommittees on particular subject matter as opposed to trying to conduct all the business all the time and in wide open committee meetings. I don't know if that was done last time or not, but I think that's a good idea, in addition to promoting as much public participation as you can.
Knowing what you know about how the current government functions and the county charter, what do you believe is the number one area or concern that needs to be addressed by this Charter Review Commission?
In comparing our charter with some of the municipal charters that I've worked with, and also some of the other county charters that I looked at, I think we should take a hard look at how we define the level of departments that are listed under the charter organization. In most cities, all the major departments, police, fire, service, planning commission, building departments, that so forth, are all pretty much delineated in the charter, and in some cases, the level of responsibility, how many employees they can have, that type of thing. I'm not suggesting we go to that level of detail, but in our charter, there's only a few departments that are really specifically identified. I think it'd be a good discussion with all the candidates that are here for the Charter Review Commission to see what their thoughts would be on either expanding that to include more departments or to look at some other ideas as to how those departments are identified. I think it would be a plus in terms of long-term management.
Do you believe that there are any current positions within county government that should go from an elected office to an appointed office, or vice versa?
I do not have an opinion on that, sir.
In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from another government entity that you would like to see implemented at county government?
As I said earlier, one of the things I was impressed in looking at some other charter review commissions was using social media. It is 2017, so we can approach this in terms of getting the word out. And I thought it looked like it proved to be successful in terms of getting a pretty good depth of participation from the general public across all demographic and political lines.
Is there anything else you would like this committee to know about your appointment?
Just that I appreciate the opportunity, look forward to it, and would ask for your confirmation.
Are there any questions from the committee? All right. Well, Dennis, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
At this time, if Michael King would come forward. All right. And if you would please state your name, political party, and city of residence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Michael King. I'm a registered Democrat, and I live in the city of Cleveland.
Okay, and again, congratulations for coming this far through the process, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Michael, how did you learn about this position on the CRC?
Well, I think as most of you know, I staffed the last Charter Review Commission as a member of the Law Department, and when the opportunity arose again, I jumped at it, and I'm eager to get involved.
Okay. Have you gotten a chance to review the rules of the CRC?
Yes.
Okay. Those rules require at least one monthly meeting. Does your schedule allow for such a time commitment?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review the CRC rules?
I have.
Are you currently serving on any other government, private, or nonprofit board or commission?
Not independently. I do serve as an alternate for members of council on various boards and commissions, including the Land Bank, Planning Commission, Board of Control, and the Department Review Board, and others as may be needed.
The rules of the CRC require all meetings be open to the public. Do you have any issues or concerns over that?
Not at all.
Also, council would like all CRC meetings to be live streamed. Are you okay with this as well?
Yep.
The CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input from county officials includes council and administration will be critical to your work on the CRC. How will you balance being independent while at the same time receiving valuable input?
I think it can be a challenge, but in my current job, I've become accustomed to balancing different interests and priorities. So hopefully I can continue doing that. And furthermore, I think the group being appointed represents a healthy cross-section of interests from other local governments, justice system, education, industry, labor, et cetera. So hopefully we can balance each other out.
How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations and discussions?
I think as it has been stated and as required by the rules of the commission, I think it's great that we offer time for public comments and adopt a comprehensive public participation plan. I know the last Charter Review Commission, as was mentioned, held about 4 town hall style meetings, and I think that was a pretty good model.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
I hope that my time with the county, I've learned a little bit about the operations here and have a reasonably good sense of what has been working and what hasn't been working quite so well. Additionally, I think my time serving as counsel to the last Charter Review Commission and my time working for county council, I think I've had a hand in drafting almost all of the charter amendments to date since 2013 in some form or fashion. So hopefully that experience will be of some assistance.
What do you see as the biggest issue currently facing Cuyahoga County government?
I think has been stated, I think the most immediate issue is definitely the budget. I know it's something that has been on everyone's mind recently. In a more structural way, I think it's important to take a step back and remember that, while we're dealing with these day-to-day issues, this government is still relatively new, and a lot of the norms and traditions you often find in local or longer-standing governments haven't really been established yet. So a lot of what is happening today can set precedents for years to come. And so I just sort of keep that in mind as we move forward with this commission and support the things that are working in county government and try to find opportunities to fix things where they aren't working quite as well.
If you're familiar with the previous CRC from 2012 and 2013, what would be the one thing you would change from the way that commission operated versus how you would want this CRC to operate?
I think, as Councilman Miller mentioned, I think the last CRC underestimated the time it would take to reach consensus on particular charter language, which led to a bit of a scramble leading up to the July 1st deadline. So there was a lot of, I think there were maybe like 4 meetings held in the last 2 weeks, so it was a pretty hectic time. So I think whether it be a committee structure or some other system, I think setting a timetable at the start of the process to make sure there's sufficient time left to really draft and discuss particular language of amendments rather than sort of talking about conceptual ideas would be beneficial.
Do you believe that there are any current positions within county government that should go from an elected office to an appointed office or vice versa?
Probably not. I know the last Charter Review Commission heard testimony arguing for either having an elected sheriff or an appointed prosecutor. I think the original drafters of the charter struck a pretty good balance. I think there's possibly some operational efficiencies you might be able to gain through having an appointed prosecutor, but at that point you lose some accountability of independence of a law enforcement office. So that being said, if the commission adheres clear and convincing evidence to make a change, I'd keep an open mind, but I don't at this time believe that there needs to be a change.
In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from another government entity that you would like to see implemented at Cuyahoga County?
I think there are some best practices the county could probably adopt. I don't know if that would be appropriate to memorialize in a charter, but I generally support, the recent wave of analytical, data-driven approach that many government offices have taken over the last few years, including locally. And I think a continued focus on meaningful regional collaboration that provides value to our local partners is important as well.
Is there anything else you would like this committee to know about your appointment?
Just that I'm honored to be considered, and I appreciate the time and consideration.
Excellent. Are there any further questions from the committee? Councilman Miller?
For some reason, question 11 wasn't asked, so I'm going to ask it, and just saying that knowing what you know about how current county government functions, what are areas that you've identified that you think the Charter Commission should take a serious look at and maybe could come up with language that's better than what we have currently?
Yeah, I think, and this has been mentioned a couple times earlier, I think that there's opportunity to more clearly define and delineate the proper roles of the Personnel Review Commission and the Human Resources Department. I think the original drafters of the charter clearly wanted the Personnel Review Commission to perform some type of oversight function, but in that respect, I think there was probably some overlap in what was put in, and it was a little bit vague. And I think that's resulted in some operational issues since then that I think many of you are aware of on an ongoing basis. So I think it makes sense to hear testimony from both sides and try and come up with a workable solution.
Any further questions?
Any other areas?
I know the concept of Memorializing the Inspector General in the charter was a topic of discussion last time and since then. I think the agency of Inspector General has been a net benefit to the county. I don't know whether or not it would require memorializing it in the charter at this point, but it's definitely, I think, something that'll probably come up.
Okay. Right. If there are no further questions, thank you.
Comment.
Yes.
If I can,
Councilwoman
Mr.
Sines.
Chair, just to thank Mr. King for your willingness to serve. You stood out during the last charter review process as a law department appointee and clerk to be able to really, or working in that vein, to understand the process and the issues in a really deep way. So I watched you back then when you were not with our council, and so I'm really happy that you'll be on this review with your institutional knowledge and vast experience, along with the other members who will be serving. But I appreciate that you've been there before and will be able to carry on some of that information to the present.
Thank you.
All right, again, if there are no further questions, thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this time, would the Honorable Tom Persiak come forward, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And again, congratulations, and thank you for your willingness to serve.
You're welcome.
All right. And as all others have done before, please state your name, political party, and city of residence.
My name is Thomas P. Persiak. I live in the city of Strongsville, and I am a registered Republican.
How did you learn of this position on the CRC?
I spoke with the county executive, and he asked me if I would please take time to serve, and I said to him I would be happy to do so.
Have you gotten a chance to review the rules of the CRC?
Yes, briefly today.
Okay. All right. With that short time, those rules can require that the CRC meet at least once a month. Does your schedule allow for such a time commitment?
Yes, with the exception of the first and third Mondays of every month, where I am required by the city charter of Strongsville to attend council meetings in my capacity as mayor.
Okay. Are you currently serving on any government, private, or nonprofit boards or commissions?
Several boards. I serve on the Cleveland Catholic Diocese Financial Board for many, many years, yet I was appointed to that board by Bishop Pilla and reappointed by Bishop Lennon. I continue to serve there in this change. I serve on the Strongsville Chamber of Commerce Board. I serve on the Benedictine St. Andrew Abbey Board. I serve on various other boards throughout the city. And I also am an independent director for the Cortland Savings Bank out of Cortland, Ohio, and I have served on their board for the last year and a half, and I serve on several committees there.
The rules of the CRC require all meetings be open to the public. Do you have any issues or concerns over that?
None whatsoever.
Also, council would like all CRC meetings to be live streamed. Is this something you can accept as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input from officials, including council and administration, will be critical to your work. How will you balance being independent while at the same time receiving valuable input?
Well, pretty much the same way as I do as mayor. When you're mayor of all the people. And what I do there is I listen, I gather the information, and I analyze it, I make recommendations, and I intend to do the same thing here.
Excellent. How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations and discussions?
Well, pretty much as the other members have mentioned, the more input from the public, whether it be from social media, whether it be however you contact people, the more the merrier. That's what we're here for. And again, in my case, though, I would rather listen, observe, and then make recommendations.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
Well, I have two, being mayor of Strongsville for almost 14 years and then running a publicly traded company for many, many years before I became mayor.
What do you see as the biggest issue currently facing county government?
The biggest issue facing government today, county government, local government, any type of municipal government, is money. We continually are adjusting and readjusting the way we live in our communities simply because of our inability to convey to Columbus what our major issues are, and their continuing objective to provide for a higher rainy day fund simply being done by balancing the budget on other municipalities. So money, as I would say in our community, cash is king, and without cash you can't do too much, and the same thing applies here.
Right. If you're familiar with the previous CRC from 2012 and 13, what would be the one thing that you would change from the way that commission operated versus how you would want this CRC to operate?
I have no opinion.
No opinion. Knowing what you know about how the current county government functions and the county charter, what do you believe is the number one area or concern that needs to be addressed by this CRC?
At this time, I have no opinion again, because I said I'm here to listen and learn, make observations and recommendations. So at this point, I'll reserve any comment.
Do you believe there are any current positions within county government that should go from an elected to an appointed position or vice versa?
At this point, I have no opinion.
In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from another government entity that you would like to see implemented?
I'm sure there are best practices, but I think it was alluded by Mr. King that at this point I wouldn't want to see best practices memorialized into a county charter. Best practices are just that, whether they be in business or they be in government. Is there anything else you would like this committee to know about your appointment?
Well, I just want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity. It gives me a sense of pleasure to be able to serve on a much larger basis other than my community. And I am a product of Cuyahoga County. I'm a product of Cleveland and Cleveland schools. And my wife is still very active here at St. Barbara's Parish here on Denison. So we play an active role here, and we've lived here all our lives. So we want to thank you.
Excellent. Any further questions from the committee? Councilwoman Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor, for willingness to serve. I want to follow up with your statement that the skill set you bring, one of them that would enhance your ability to serve on the commission, which that you were involved with and employed by, and I think led a publicly traded company.
Yes.
So what specific skills from that experience did you have in mind?
Well, when you're a publicly traded company, you read about yourself in a proxy. They tell you in that proxy, how old you are, what your education is. Everything is an open book. And by running a publicly traded company, everything you do is an open book. All your financial disclosures, everything that goes on within your corporation must be disclosed in that proxy statement. So I'm used to dealing with all those things for many, many years, for many decades. So that is why I think it's a skill set that I brought with me to the mayor's office, and I can bring that here.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Mayor, again, thank you for being willing to serve
You're
on the
welcome,
commission.
sir.
We appreciate your time and the experience that you bring. Mayor, in Strongsville, because I don't know, do you have partisan elections or nonpartisan elections?
Nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan elections?
Right.
The last time that we reviewed the commission, one of the issues that came up at some points was the opinion by some that the county should move to nonpartisan elections from its current partisan elections as established in the charter. Do you have an opinion about that issue?
I have no opinion, but I can tell you from my practice or my experience in Strongsville, it does work. I believe when you're at this level, at a community level, you can say you're a Democrat, you can say you're a Republican, but you're really being elected by all the people, and you should have an objective viewpoint, and you should be able to do things that are in the best interests of all people, regardless of party affiliation.
Thank you.
Any further, Councilman Miller?
Mr. Mayor, just a comment. I know that running a city the size and complexity of Strongsville is a very big undertaking, and I'm very thankful for you to be being willing to take this on.
You're
in
welcome.
addition, I know it's a very meaningful commitment for which we're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further questions from the committee. Again, Mayor, we thank you again for your service.
And thank you for the opportunity.
And at this time, if Claire Rosacco would come forward. Again, now we ask that you state your name, political party, and city of residence.
Claire Rosacco, Republican, City of Shaker Heights.
Excellent. And how did you learn of this position to the CRC?
Was approached by County Executive Budish to consider serving.
Great. Have you had a chance to review the rules of the CRC?
Yes,
Okay. They require at least a meeting monthly. Does your schedule allow for this time commitment?
yes.
Excellent. Are you currently serving on any other government, private, or nonprofit boards or commissions?
I serve as a board member for Voices for Ohio's Children and also on the National Task Force for Government Relations in Higher Education.
The rules of the CRC require all meetings be open to the public. Do you have any issue or concerns over that?
No, I think that's a great thing, by the way.
It is. This council would like all the CRC meetings to be live streamed. Would you be okay with this as well?
I would.
The CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input is important from council and administration. How would you balance being independent while at the same time receiving that valuable input?
I think it's being open-minded to all the views and then helping as the commission arrive on a good consensus as to what's needed.
How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations?
As mentioned earlier in the rules, what I thought was really great was the fact that at every meeting there's room for public comment. And then I'm hoping there would be social media opportunities, possibly a website, so that people could input their opinions if they couldn't get to a meeting. And I love the idea of doing town halls as well. And I did look at the last report. And so they did have some very open meetings and tried to get out into the community to encourage people to attend. And hopefully we could consider doing that again.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
I think consensus building is something that I enjoy working with and on. And this group just seems as though that's what they will be doing.
What do you see as the biggest issue currently facing Cuyahoga County government?
I think it's been stated, but it's how to enhance services while under fiscal constraints. And that seems to be a problem at all levels of government right now.
If you're familiar with the previous CRC from 2012 and 13, what would be the one thing you would change from the way that commission operated versus how you would want this CRC to operate?
I actually went back and reviewed some of their articles, and I did not see any one thing that I felt needed to be changed, but I think as the commission forms and proceeds, maybe there will be some other things that will allow it to be broader in terms of reach into the community. But it was hard to determine, because I wasn't at all the meetings, was there just one thing to change? I also like the idea of doing subcommittees potentially, if that makes sense.
Knowing what you know about how the current government functions and the county charter, What do you believe is the number one area or concern that needs to be addressed by this CRC?
I couldn't come up with what I felt was one area. I think I'd have to honestly be more ingrained into the process. But if there is duplication of departments, that probably does need to really be addressed.
Do you believe there are any current positions within county government that should go from an elected to an appointed position or vice versa?
Not that I'm aware of.
In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from another government that you would like to see implemented?
I would say continuous improvement, and that would be teaching things like Lean Six Sigma. We started that when I worked at the state of Ohio. It was very helpful, and the county I know is working on some of that through some of their departments. And anything we could do to help continuous improvement for our employees as well as for departments is, I think, always a very good thing to institute.
What was the name of it again?
Continuous improvement, Lean Six Sigma training could be one aspect of that, especially if the Charter Commission doesn't meet for another 10 years after this, approximately. Having ways that people can really do continuous improvement and have that looked at and best practices, I think would be really beneficial.
Is there anything else you'd like this committee to know about your appointment?
No, just that I'm honored to be considered and be of help to our community.
Excellent. Any questions from my colleagues? Excellent. Well, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
All right. And at this time, our last appointee, Victor Ruiz, if you would come forward. And as your predecessors before you, if you would please state your name, political party, and city of residence.
Good afternoon, Victor Ruiz. I'm a Democrat and I live in Cleveland.
Excellent. How did you learn of the appointment?
County executive contacted me and I was honored and happy to be here right now.
Excellent. Have you had a chance to review the rules of the CRC?
Yes,
Excellent. Those rules require meeting at least once a month, and does your schedule permit for such a time commitment?
yes.
Excellent. Are you currently serving on any other government, private, or nonprofit boards or commissions?
Yes, I am currently the chair of the Cuyahoga Community College Board. I also sit on the Cleveland Transformation Alliance and the Hispanic Roundtable, the Hispanic Alliance, and the Hispanic Alliance.
The rules of the CRC require all meetings of the CRC be open to the public. Do you have any issues or concerns over that?
No,
And do you have any concerns with live streaming being implemented?
no, I do not.
The CRC is to operate as an independent commission, but input from county officials and the administration is critical to your work. How will you balance being independent?
So I will, the input from the other county officials is critical, and I will accept that, but I also take the responsibility of representing the citizens of Cuyahoga County seriously, and that will allow me to remain independent.
How do you envision the CRC managing and incorporating input from the public into your deliberations?
So a lot has been said already, obviously leaving time for public comment and also creating some sort of online form where the average citizen can leave feedback.
Please provide one skill or asset that you possess that will benefit the CRC.
I feel my work at Esperanza, which is the agency I'm executive director of, is connected to the grassroots community. And I think that my day-to-day interaction with the average citizen provides me with a perspective that will be valuable on this commission.
What do you see as the biggest issue currently facing county government?
So I think the county having to balance meeting the needs of its citizens while catalyzing and encouraging growth for the region as a whole is very difficult. That requires more resources, but also how to best use resources, how to shift those resources. So I think figuring that out is the biggest issue right now.
If you're familiar with the previous CRC, what would be the one thing that you would change from the way that commission operated versus how you would want this commission to operate?
Yeah, I apologize, I'm not familiar enough with it to make a comment.
Okay. Knowing what you know about the current county government functions and the county charter, what do you believe is the #1 area of concern that needs to be addressed by this commission?
I think efficiency has been mentioned a few times, ensuring that the county is efficient not only for the citizens, but also for the individuals who work here. And the other thing I'd like to add is ensuring that issues of inclusion and diversity are brought up to the conversation and addressed when as necessary and as appropriate.
Do you believe there are any current positions within county government that should go from elected to appointed offices or vice versa?
I don't have an opinion at this time.
In your consideration for taking on this appointment, do you have a best practice example from any other government entity that you would like to see implemented here?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like this committee to know about your appointment?
Other than, again, I'm honored to be at this point, and I look forward to serving if selected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions from committee? Councilman Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ruiz, I greatly appreciate your willingness to serve and the broad level of experience that you bring. And I just have one question. I think it's pretty clear that the level of participation in of the Hispanic community in Cuyahoga County is not what it should be. And my question is whether you think there's anything that could be done through the charter that could help lead to better outcomes in that area.
Thank you for the question. I think that ensuring that the county is accessible to all its citizens, from language to location where services are delivered, will increase participation. So if it's appropriate to include those types of solutions in the charter, then I would advocate for that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. All right. And again, thank you to all for participating today. At this time, is there any miscellaneous business? Okay. Chrissy, has anyone signed in for public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Ms. Liu.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
After this whole meeting, I learned a lot. Actually, I have same or similar experience when OHS advisory board had to change their charter to make a revision or anything about that. I have participated in that. So while you were asking all the wonderful people here questions, I was answering on my own to see, if I'm not saying I should come to do this job, but I'm just saying at least I know something about it. All of them mentioned and they think the biggest challenge for the current government is about budget. But this is not really the most important problem because this is a whole nationwide problem. I still think that the most important problem, maybe these people can help to establish, is about Mr. Miller's idea about the transparency in the government. Because from my experience for the issues I have brought up here, and also I attended a meeting for Transformation project, I found out lots of our departments, they may have some ideas, but they don't get enough input from other departments to begin with. So by the time they come to the full county council meetings, when all of you asking questions, sometimes they don't have good answers, even I can tell. And that's why I think that's the most serious issues our government here can be improved. And I wish these ladies and gentlemen here, they can pay attention to that. So if we can get this improved, some of the problems could be eliminated or decreased. Thank you very much.
All right, Chrissy, has anyone else signed in for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, if nothing else holds our attention, this meeting is adjourned.